Hi, it's Chelsea here, and it feels so weird to be back in front of a camera after 2 weeks. Exactly 2 weeks ago today I gave birth to my baby boy Greyson, baby Grey, and you can definitely see from my face that I am a new mum. Like, I look so run down. But I did really want to get back into filming as soon as possible, so today I'm going to be doing my labour and delivery story. I didn't actually plan to, but I ended up vlogging a little bit of my labour, so I'll insert those clips throughout this video. So this video is literally going to be me explaining the events and what happened. So I woke up on the 12th of August 2017 to a little rush of water, but it was a tiny weeny rush, like barely anything. So I honestly didn't think it was my waters because it was so tiny. So I just ignored it, and later that day the exact same thing happened again, just a teeny weeny bit of water coming down. Again, it was only a little bit, so I completely ignored it. Happened again later that day, and this time it kind of soaked through my underwear a bit. Sorry to be gross, but still, it wasn't a massive gush of water, it was just a bit, so still I ignored it. So that evening, the 12th, I was laying in my bed, and gradually I started getting these, God, I can't even explain the pain. It's not how everyone else described contractions, which is why I didn't think it was contractions. And also, I would have thought it'd be a lot higher up than it actually was. The pain was very, very low down, and I can't even explain it. It's not a tightening, but it was just weird. Honestly, cannot explain the pain. I've kind of forgot it, to be honest. So at first I ignored it because I didn't think they were contractions, because they didn't feel like everyone described them. But after a while they just kept on going on, so I got my contraction timer up and started recording the timings. Turned out they were actually 5 minutes apart, and they were lasting, I think it was 30 seconds each, I think. So actually quite close together, so I did end up messaging mum. In short, I basically said, "Hi mum, basically I think a bit of my waters have been going throughout the day, and now I'm getting pains, but I'm not sure if they're contractions. I don't think they are." And immediately mum ran down the stairs and was like, "Why didn't you tell me?" Obviously I should have told her the minutes that I thought my waters were breaking, but I didn't. Immediately she called the midwife and asked her what she would suggest we do. So then she passed the phone to me. I spoke to the midwife, explained everything, and the midwife said you should have come in the minute your water started breaking. Basically, the minute your waters start breaking, you're very vulnerable to infections and stuff like that, so a lot of the time they'll want you to go in straight away. So the midwife basically said to go to the hospital so they could check me out and see what was happening. Mum also called my dad because he was going to bring my other birthing partner here, who is mum's friend. So dad left to pick her up straight away, and I was like, "Mum, no, like, it's fine, not yet, it's not going to happen yet." And then the minute I stood up off my bed where I've been laying for hours, the pain stopped, and I was like, oh God, like, we've made everyone rush around. We've called a midwife, and the pain's completely gone the minute I've stood up. So I genuinely didn't think it was contractions at that point. And just in case it wasn't a false call and it was actually the real thing, I was like, I don't want to go there with no makeup on, I look horrible. So I really quickly just sat at my desk, did my makeup while mum was getting all my stuff ready, and then we left in the car. So it was basically the next day by the time we actually got to the hospital. When we got to the hospital, she did my blood pressure, my temperature, I think my pulse, and then obviously like checked out if my waters had broken. She confirmed that they had been breaking, and she also said that my temperature was slightly too high. Basically, I think it's meant to be 37.5, it was 37.7. So this made her think that I might have got an infection from waiting so long. So at this point, I was like, will I be able to have a water birth? And she was like, no. I was so frustrated, and she wasn't even sympathetic about it. She was just like, no, you can't have one. And water birth, as you know, had been my plan all along. I wanted a really natural, like, water birth basically, and she was just saying, no, that's not gonna happen. I literally begged. I was like, is there any way at all? My temperature is only just over what it should be. And she said no, basically, because when you're in water, not only will it make your body temperature higher, and it really couldn't get any higher, but also water spreads infection, so if I did have an infection it would have just made it worse. She also said that because my waters had been breaking, obviously I was really vulnerable to infection at this point, so they couldn't just leave me, they would have to induce me. So I was really frustrated at this point because, one, I really didn't want an induction. Two, the induction was to be done through an IV in my hand, which I really didn't want. And three, I wouldn't be able to have a water birth, so it was literally exactly what I didn't want. I was just really frustrated. My dad and my other birthing partner arrived. It was all quite chill, to be honest, and they took me upstairs to like the labour room or whatever. It was just like an individual room. You'll see videos of it.
Right, okay, our propositions. Remind us to try different ones. Massage. Tune into what might help. Some radio station. Breathing. Get us to breathe with you if she's getting too panicky. Bloody hell, Chelsea, make sure you breathe until you're dying. Remind her she's oh no, sorry, remind her to go regularly.
Do I go to the toilet?
Where you gotta go? Where you gotta go regularly, Jess?
She said to keep going to the toilet.
Love.
Oh,
That's a bit much, isn't it?
Love. So gradually yesterday my waters were like leaking, but I didn't really think much of it because it wasn't that much. And then I was getting pains which were like 10 minutes apart, which I was tracking on my app. And then what? But again, they weren't that bad, but I ended up telling Mum in the end, and we called the midwife who said to come down, because apparently when your waters break you're meant to come down straight away. So I should have really came down yesterday at like midday, but now it's 5:36 in the morning. Basically we came here a few hours ago and they monitored me and everything, but because I have a temperature I can't have a water birth, because if I had a water birth then it would make my temperature go even higher and then it would risk infection. So all of my plans have gone out the window. So now what they think they're going to do is induce me, which is brilliant, and I can't be in the water, so can't do my original plan. So we have Donna, Mum and Dad, but he's going to go. He's going to go and get us a McDonald's hopefully. But it's currently the 13th of August, so I'm 3 days past my due date right now. Let me see Katie.
I'm actually gonna cry. Where's my baby?
It's taking its time.
Yeah, look.
Dad stayed in the room for a few hours. He actually went out and got us a McDonald's breakfast, which was amazing. Like McDonald's breakfast in labour, that was great. Yeah, we're currently ordering McDonald's because I deserve it. They just took blood off of me, which took like 3 or 4 attempts, which was ridiculous. And they're gonna put a drip in me in a minute, which I'm loving, so I'm glad to be alive right now. What are we writing?
What would you want? An egg McMuffin meal.
An egg what is the meal? What does the meal consist of?
Hash brown.
I won't want to drink that.
You want to go home? Come back.
McDonald's. But he eventually left. He'd forgot his insulin and his diabetic, so he had to go and sort that out. And obviously he wasn't going to be in the room like when I was in labour and giving birth. But he did end up staying around the hospital for the full like 26 or whatever hours that I was in labour for. Can you draw that? Yeah, do a pound for me. There was one really uncomfortable stool and one like comfy chair, and then obviously the bed for me. So Mum and her friend had to take it in turns to sit on the chair, and considering that none of us had slept because this was all the middle of the night and none of us could sleep because so much was happening, so we were all exhausted. They strongly suggested that I get an epidural before I was even induced. Basically, because they needed to induce me quick, there are many types of induction that you can get. There's like things that can be put up you and stuff like that, but they take a lot longer. So the form that they wanted to use on me obviously goes into your veins through an IV, but this form of induction would cause the most painful and horrible contractions, and they said basically it could get to a point where it was so painful that I would be wriggling around too much to ever get an epidural later on. So they really recommended that I get one from the start. This really surprised me because I really didn't think the hospital would want you to have an epidural and like encourage you to. I kind of thought it would be something they would discourage. They were basically saying that I should, and obviously I was really reluctant because I really didn't want an epidural. That was again something that really wasn't on my birthing plan. I'd always been told that it was just a needle in the back, like a quick injection. Apparently they put a tube in your back and then you have a button that you can just press whenever you want. Well, actually it's 3 times an hour that you can press it, and it will feed the like epidural stuff into your back. So the thought of having a tube in my back for the whole of my labour really put me off, but they convinced me. So they put the IV in. It wasn't actually that bad, and then they put the epidural tube thing in my back. That wasn't as bad as I thought. It still hurt, but it wasn't like terrible. I've got this in my hand and I have an epidural, and I thought it'd be really bad, but it wasn't actually terrible. And they're about to eat food and I'm not allowed food. I can't believe I'm not in pain. But she said that like having the epidural in and the thing in my hand would be probably the worst pain that I'll be in the whole time. So if that's the worst it gets, like, I'm sorted. Obviously when you have an epidural, you're numb from the waist down. So I said to her, like, am I going to feel contractions at all? And she said it's unlikely that you'll feel them that strong at all. And she said that the most pain that I would be in would be the pain from having that put in my back. So after it was put in my back, I was like, that's the worst it's going to get. Like, it's all up from here. It was the weirdest sensation. I genuinely thought it wouldn't work on me, but the whole bottom was numb. To test if it's working, they get this really ice cold spray. They spray it on your arm, which hurts because it's so ice cold. It's like, oh god, it's like needles, it's so cold. And then they spray it a bit further down until you can't feel it. And it's so weird because it's so cold here, but the minute they get to like here, you can't feel anything, and you know that it should be cold, but you just can't feel it. And to demonstrate how well the thing worked, I couldn't sit up at all. She was trying to get me to sit up at one point, and I was literally crying with laughter because I physically couldn't move my body. Thanks for laughing, it's so much, I'm crying. I can't move. What am I doing?
You're literally just straightening yourself up in the bed, which I think you might have done.
Oh my god, that is so funny. I just can't move.
You need to come this way a little bit, don't you?
I can't even feel that. Do you think it's because it's usually on that side? Oh my god, I just have no feeling. That's so funny.
It's a bit more.
I actually feel like I'm never going to
Laughing rather than crying. That's a good thing.
Just sit forward.
as I can.
Woman next door screaming, she's laughing.
Yeah, it is.
That is so hilarious.
Over again. Forward again. 1, 2, 3, sit. Just tucking this behind you, because that'll stop you sort of sliding
I
around.
got my sponge off the bed.
What
What is this?
So much energy to on
Oh
your
my
wrist.
god, that looks hilarious. Oh my god, that feels so weird.
I've never laughed in labour. It must be good.
It's so weird to know that I was having contractions because the thing next to me printed off a stream of when I was having them, but I couldn't feel a single one, and it was so weird. And then eventually they checked me and said that I was 10 centimeters dilated, which I was like, how? It was so weird how I could literally be ready to start pushing and have felt no pain whatsoever. After they said I was 10 centimeters dilated, they said they were going to give me 1 more hour just for the baby to naturally make his way down a little bit, and then I was going to start pushing. Let me just say, the midwife I had from start to this point was lovely. She was really nice, really chatty. And then not long before the pushing stage, they replaced her with someone else because she finished her shift. And this woman was so frustrating. She couldn't understand a word I said. Like, every single question I asked, she didn't answer properly, or she just answered something completely different. They basically meant to sit next to you, like talk to you, make sure you're okay and everything. She sat there, put the curtain around herself, and apparently was researching cameras, my mum said. So it got to the pushing stage. This woman was telling me when to push because I honestly couldn't feel anything, and I feel like I just didn't really know how to push without like pooing myself. Apparently you're meant to push as if you're doing a poo. I didn't want to do that because I thought I would genuinely poo myself, which I really didn't want to do. I did push, but I feel like not as much as I could and not the right way. I feel like I wasn't pushing. Yeah, basically I just feel like I wasn't pushing how I should be. When it got to the pushing stage, I did start getting a few tiny little pains, but they weren't contractions. It was just a weird cramping where my leg joins onto my body, which is really weird. The midwife didn't offer any kind of support or any sympathy or anything, so mum ended up saying, could she have some gas and air, because she wasn't offering anything. They got the gas and air out. I took about 2 like puffs, like, and I completely like blacked out. I didn't like fall back or anything, but my vision went completely black, couldn't see a thing, and my hearing completely went. I just went completely dizzy, and I thought I was gonna faint. And then almost straight afterwards I was sick, so gas and air really didn't work for me. Yeah, the pushing just really wasn't working. She tried to help the baby out. Mum says she was really rough about it, but I don't exactly remember. I was also really delusional at this point, which was weird. So exhausted, I'd had basically no sleep. So in between contractions I was going to sleep, so I'd literally have like 30 seconds of sleep, however long of pushing, 30 seconds of sleep, however long of pushing. But during the sleep times, I was just talking complete rubbish because I was so out of it. So during my sleep, I remember saying, I can see our bird, why is our bird on the ceiling? Because obviously we have a budgie. And I was just talking so much rubbish. I was saying stuff like, I'm gonna punch myself in the face so that nothing hurts except the punch, but that's okay. And just stupid stuff like that. Painful, real. Not even lie. My legs don't work.
What's the matter?
Life doesn't work. I'm literally going to punch myself in the face.
Why?
So I don't have to feel anything. Except the punch. Which is preferable to anything. She gave me an hour of pushing and then basically said the baby's head is coning, whatever that means, and I wasn't really getting anywhere. She lacked encouragement so much. My mum and the other birthing partner were like, well done, you're doing so well, like good job. I don't remember what the woman was like, I just know that she wasn't helpful whatsoever, like I just couldn't stand her. And this is the impression that mum does of that woman while she was telling me to push. And oh my god, when she did this impression after I'd given birth, I honestly thought I was going to burst a stitch because I was laughing so much. So apparently when she was trying to get me to push, the midwife was going,
come on, 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 come on.
on repeat, and that's all she was saying, like no encouragement whatsoever. An hour's worth of pushing, said the baby's head is coning, we need to get it out, we can't do it this way because you're not getting anywhere. So she basically said we'd have to do an emergency C-section. Now if you know me, if you've been watching my videos, you'll know this was my worst fear about labour. This is one thing that I 100% did not want to do. So not only did I not get a water birth, not only did I have to have an IV, an epidural, but now I was going to have a C-section, everything that I didn't want to happen. So obviously this really upset me. I was like crying my eyes out. I was like, please, I don't want a C-section, just give me another chance. But he needed to get out and it was going to be the safest way. I literally begged them to put me to sleep before doing the C-section because I was just that scared. And he basically said that that was a very last resort. They really wouldn't want to put me to sleep at all. They could do anything. They could do a spinal block, which they didn't do. They could literally do anything else, but they really would not want to put me to sleep. They also said that if they were going to put me to sleep, they'd have to put a tube down my throat and do it that way, and that immediately put me off. I was like, no, I'm not having a tube down my throat. But still, I really didn't want a C-section. Obviously I had to sign the papers to say that I would allow it, and I was so reluctant to sign them. I signed the papers, but because I was so out of it, I can't remember if I actually wrote it with my left hand, which I'm not left-handed, or if I wrote it with my right hand, but just really unsuccessfully. It looked worse than a 3-year-old's writing, and that's not even over exaggeration. I forgot how to spell my last name, so I just wrote Chelsea, but I did the S the wrong way round. The whole thing was so bad. It was massive letters with massive gaps between them. It was terrible. So not long after, they wheeled my bed to the surgery room. They slide this big board under me and slide me onto the surgery table because obviously I can't move myself onto the table. They asked mum if she wanted to be there, and obviously she said yes. If I was mum, I would not have been there. It's just disgusting. I wouldn't want to witness that. I wouldn't want to be in the same room. But obviously, I'm so grateful that she was there because it would have been so lonely and scary otherwise. So mum went and got changed into her, like, attire. She had to wear this green, I don't know, surgery outfit or whatever, which looked hilarious on her. She sat next to me on a chair and just stroked my head the whole time, but I was almost completely out of it. When I was laying there, they were getting all set up and I kept on asking questions, but I don't know if I was either really mumbling or if everyone was just choosing to ignore me. But I was saying things like, can I have earplugs? Please, can I have earplugs? Please, can you just give me earplugs? Like, I was begging because I didn't want to be able to hear what they were doing and what they were saying because it was just freaking me out. Everyone was just blanking me, and I begged them to wait until I fell asleep before they started because I was honestly so exhausted I could have fell asleep within minutes. But again, they weren't answering me. I think I did vaguely fall asleep before they started, and then the man woke me up and asked me if the signature on the paper was actually mine. And obviously I was so out of it, I was just like, I think so. And he was like, I don't know if we can accept this, because basically my writing, the signature was so bad and looked like a 3-year-old had written it, that he almost couldn't accept it. He said that they might have to use a fingerprint instead of my signature because it looked terrible, but eventually they did end up accepting it. So they started doing it. There was a radio in the corner. Mum was trying to get me to focus on the music, which was cute. They started playing Despacito, and they started playing loads of different things, and I think the song that he actually came out to was Don't Worry, Be Happy Now, which was like so cute. I think I felt it a lot more than most people say that they can feel it. I feel like my epidural had wore off a little bit at that point because I hadn't been pressing the button that much towards the end. I've no idea, but I really did feel it. Don't let that scare you though if you're going to get a C-section, because most people say they can't feel it, so I think it was just me. At one point, mum said that I started making sounds like so obviously that scared her, and she looked at what they were doing because she was worried, like, why was I making these noises? And she was like, I wish I didn't look. That has scarred me. And she described like what she saw, but I won't even talk about that. Obviously I couldn't see anything that was going on because they put a big sheet in front of your belly so that you can't see beyond that. But even just knowing what they were doing, it just disgusted me. Don't know how long I was in there for because I was so out of it, and again I was really delusional, so I was just talking complete rubbish. I started seeing things in my head while my eyes were shut. So one thing I recall seeing was, this is so random, it was a triangle road sign, like a warning, and it had a picture of a cat on it weeing. That is just one of the random images that popped into my head while I was delusional and having a C-section. So I started saying it to Mum. I was like, why would anyone need a road sign of a cat weeing? What help is that? I don't understand. Like, I was talking rubbish. Eventually I heard the cry. Oh my god, it's so emotional. I obviously heard Greyson cry, and it was so weird, because obviously you know you're gonna have a baby, but it doesn't feel real until he's actually there and you can actually hear him. So the minute I heard that cry, it was like, it's real. I think they might have held him up, but I don't think I actually saw him at that point. Mum saw them unravel a cord from his neck a bunch of times. That scared her a lot. Obviously I didn't see that because the big sheet was in front of me. So then obviously the cord needed to be cut. They asked my mum if she wanted to do it, and she didn't. I wouldn't have wanted to either. That really is gross to me. So she said no, and they were like, are you sure? And then obviously she felt really bad and felt like she had to. So she did cut it. And then obviously they needed to take Greyson to be weighed and everything like that. So Mum asked me if I wanted her to sit with me or if I wanted her to go with Greyson, and obviously I wanted her to go with Greyson. And then eventually they kind of put him on my chest. It was quite awkward because obviously I was laying down, but oh my god, it was amazing. And obviously when you see newborn babies, like, they're not the most attractive things in the world, so I expected him to be like this little alien looking scrawny thing, but when I saw him I was like, oh my god, he's actually beautiful. Mum took photos of the minute that I saw him and everything, so I'll put these here. And I remember looking across the room and I saw Mum leaning over the cot just looking at him, like, with complete love in her eyes. But because she had all the hospital stuff on, it didn't look like my mum. So I was like, why is that random doctor like standing there admiring my baby? Being sewed up hurt so much more than I expected. Don't want to put you off. I don't think that's everyone's experience at all. I think most people can't even feel it, but for some reason I did. It was not good. I was just moaning the whole time. When they finished this, they took the epidural tube out of my back. Didn't feel that at all. And again, they slid me back onto the hospital bed and I was wheeled onto this ward. It was really empty actually. I don't know if there was anyone else on it. I ended up giving birth to Greyson on the 14th of August at 4:13 in the morning. Obviously my dad had waited at the hospital for, god, I don't even know, like maybe 26, 28 hours. Because he'd been off the ward and onto other wards for insulin for his diabetes, they really didn't want to let him into the ward that I was in. Eventually they said that he could come in for like 5 minutes just to say hello. It was so funny because Mum was still in all her like green outfit thing and honestly didn't look recognizable. Like, you couldn't see that it was my mum at all. So Mum was saying to Dad, like, calm down, they're gonna let you in for 5 minutes, you need to stop being psycho, like, calm down. He didn't realise it was Mum because it just did not look like her in what she was wearing, so he was getting even angrier because he thought that a nurse was being rude to him. Mum stayed overnight. We were both exhausted, and it wasn't until the next morning that they put me onto the maternity ward, which is where everyone is who's given birth, and I ended up staying there for 4 days, which is a lot longer than most people. Most people were in and out within like a day. I just didn't understand why I was healing so slowly compared to everyone else, but turned out I had an infection, a very serious one. If it gets to the heart, it's very serious. Hence why I currently have a PICC line. I get antibiotics through that every day at the moment. Obviously that would have been from my waters breaking gradually and me not saying anything and an infection getting through that way. So tip to any pregnant people out there, if your waters are breaking, please go in as soon as possible because this will happen otherwise. I would like to do a separate video on my hospital stay, like my experience there, what happened. There's a lot of like parts to it and everything like that. I can talk more about my infection and also obviously the recovery of a C-section. I didn't realise how hard it would be. I didn't realise how painful it would be afterwards. I thought the C-section itself would hurt, but afterwards I'd be fine. I'd just be walking around. Honestly, I couldn't get out of my bed for the first few days. It was torture. But yeah, that's my labour and delivery story. Sorry it was so massively long. I hate uploading videos this long, but I couldn't really shorten it down without missing parts out. If you did like this video, please do give it a like and subscribe. Very soon I want to do a day in the life of a teen mum. Every single day I think, right, today I'm going to record it, and then I end up waking up at the 3 AM feed and just completely forgetting to record it. And obviously I want to start from the very start, so I just need to remember. So yeah, thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.
Don't worry, baby.